We now greetings from Reverend Jerry Tirano, the CBD director.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning. First of all, I'd like to thank Ellie Betzreen and Southern District Ministers for hosting once again our Winter Pacific Seminar. This year, I'm very excited for all of you to hear about these projects that Reverend Mauricio has the expertise to develop with artificial intelligence. We're in a time of great change, ignoring the turmoil within the governmental parts of our United States. For all of us, we're seeing this transition from Japanese Americans to the greater, larger American community. And also with the generational changes, maybe the mode of transmitting the Dharma is starting to change. So many of our youth are constantly on their screens, constantly going through social media for answers and things. And so we're already getting behind Reverend Mauricio with his use of artificial intelligence is really keeping up with that trend before we get any further behind. And one of the things that's often held us back, as we understand even in BCA, is language. Most of us don't have the opportunity to study Japanese, or if you're like me, a third generation Japanese American, when my parents tried to force me to go to Japanese school, I said, I'm American, why do I gotta go to Japanese school? But I ended up having to study it anyway. But now with this artificial intelligence, it's skipping over an entire step, and we'll be able to transmit the Dharma in at least 20 languages. What was unthinkable. Even right now, we only have Shinshu translated into a couple at most without any of the commentaries. So I hope you take a great interest and support the use of AI within our teachings. And Mauricio is a perfect example. He's born in Brazil to Italian parents. So he's like a sansei in Brazil. He became interested in Buddhism at a young age, but Brazil, as many places, you really can't make a living as a minister. So he works in tech. He currently lives in Spain, where he works for Amazon in tech and computer programming. So we met through the We Hope program, which is the meeting we have every few years between Higashi and Nishi ministers. Right? And we hit it off. Some people, you just hit it off. And Mauricio and I were able to do that. And he's kept me informed of what he's doing. When I heard about his AI project, I was telling people it's the first time in years and years I'm really excited about something that we can do for Jodo Shinshu in the world, then it's teaching. Right. So thank you for coming. Thank you, Betsy, for hosting us. I hope that you will take the opportunity and come to other programs that CBE have, either here or in Berkeley, because it's through your donations to BC that we're able to do these things. All right? So thank you very much for coming.
Thank you, Hirano Sensei. This concludes our opening service. And for those who attend seminar in English, the lecture will be held here at the Hondo at 9:30. 日本語の人はウシテヤチャペルの方にお移りください。So let us recite the Buddha's name as we conclude. Thank you very much. Please offer the incense. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone, once again. So we can keep within schedule, we'll just begin. But I'd like to introduce once again my friend, Reverend Mauricio Hondaku Higoneto. And as I said, we met maybe 10 years ago or so at the Nishin Higashi Ministers meeting. And it's funny how we became friends. It was over our tattoos. I was asking one of the scholars from Japan, Reverend Mitsuya Dake, I said, you think I could go to an onsen anymore? I have tattoos now. And he goes, oh, we've become quite liberal in tattoos in Japan now. So he goes, show it to me. So I did, and he goes, well, I guess you can't go to onsen anymore. And Mauricio was right there, and he goes, I love Yakuza tattoos. And he pulls off his shirt and goes, look at this, look at this, look at this. So it was over that we bonded. Again, we've been a number of times since. But anyways, as I said, he is third generation Italian, born and raised in Brazil, so his main language was Portuguese. But as he works for Amazon, he lives in Spain. And is representative for Amazon in Italy, Spain, and does things in Brazil in technical computers and databases, things like that. But he was ordained through Higashi Honganji. I don't know how much longer that will stay. You know, he might, since Higashi Honganji, a couple of times our Nishichen ministers switched over to Higashi. So I says, we'll pull you over to our side. So you never know, but he is the Higashi minister right now, all right? But as I said, I'm very excited about this project, Shinran AI, and we have friends in the UK who have been talking about, because language is such a barrier to our teachings. And with this technology, I really believe that it will change. And we're going to really try to get this out as soon as possible, because Mauricio explained to me that by the end of the year, we'll be at least 5 years behind. If we wait a year after that, we'll be 10 years behind. Right? So it's moving very quickly. So I think it's wonderful that we have someone like Mauricio who's spearheading this use of artificial intelligence in our sharing of the Nendo's teaching. So I hope you enjoyed today's. We'll begin with his presentation. Then I've asked Reverend Takashi Miyaji from IBS to handle the question and answer period after. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. It's a pleasure to be here. First time here in the Between, LA Between. And I'm so honored to be invited to talk about this great subject, which connects my spiritual life with my professional life, and a subject that I'm very enthusiastic. Most of people have fear about this, but I will try today to diminish a little that fear. So first of all, I'd like you to excuse my English. It's not a perfect, it's far away from a perfect one. So I beg your forgiveness for this. And I have prepared here some commentaries, and then after this, I'll make a demonstration for you about some projects we have. And we have been discussing this last week, in the last few days. And after that, we will open for questions and answers. And I'll have the help here of my friend Takashi Sensei to help me with that. So if you can hold your questions until the end, I appreciate it. And Before anything else, I really would like to express my deep gratitude for the BCA, IBS, the LA Between, to have, and all the ministers involved to bring me here, all the way from Spain, but has been a very nice and productive week, first in Salt Lake City, and then Berkeley, and now here, so it's always a pleasure to be around. I'm especially grateful to Jerry Sensei and Carmela Sensei, who host me at their home and feed me and drove me around. We had a very interesting road trip from all the way from Salt Lake to here. It was a 3-day trip, and then I could not remember if we stay silent for more than 10 minutes because we spoke like all the travel on, and then we were making plans, me and Jerry, trying to find solutions and projecting all of this, all of the future of the Jodo Shinshu in the world. I received this invitation not simply as a personal honor, but also as a shared responsibility, a moment of collective reflection within the living tradition of Shin Buddhism. I would like to begin with something very simple and very honest. This is not a talk about technology for its own sake. And it's not a talk about changing the heart of Dharma. This is very important. It's a conversation about the conditions under which the Dharma is being heard, understood, and transmitted today. And about how those conditions are changing more quickly than many of us anticipated. Like I said, I think that we are all, as a Buddhist institution, 5 years behind at this point. But we are facing exponential growth of this technology. So, like I said, by the end of next year, it's not going to be 6, but 10 years late. What we see every month in terms of technology changes is far, far faster than anything else we have seen before. We live in a time of extraordinary acceleration. Language evolves rapidly, attention in fragmented communities are no longer shaped primarily by geography. Younger generations related to learning, authority, and belonging in ways that differ profoundly from the social world in which much of our Buddhist institutional structure was formed. This does not mean that the Dharma is outdated, no. But it does mean that many of the forms through which the Dharma has traditionally been mediated no longer reach all the people to whom the primal vow is directed. Whether we welcome it or resist it, artificial intelligence has emerged squarely within this context, not as an abstract idea, but as a daily presence, shaping how people read, translate, ask questions, and seek understanding. For practitioners, this naturally raises concerns, for sure. For ministers like us and institutional leaders, it raises unavoidable questions. And for the Sangha as a whole, it calls for discernment rather than reaction. So, the guiding question of this reflection is not, is the artificial intelligence good or bad? The deeper question is, how does Shin Buddhism respond wisely and compassionately to a transformation in the conditions of listening? This is the question. Before turning to doctrine, it's important to name very concretely what artificial intelligence already makes possible today. Not in theory, but in practice. At a practical level, AI has transformed the speed and scale at which texts can be translated. Teachings that once required years of specialized labor to reach new linguistic communities can now be rendered into multiple languages in a fraction of the time. This always requires, for sure, careful human review and responsibility, but is no longer constrained by the same degree of scarcity. This matters deeply for Shin Buddhism because access to the Dharma has always been mediated by language. When language becomes a barrier, the Dharma appears distant. When language becomes accessible, the Dharma becomes intimate again. Artificial intelligence also lowers the threshold for initial understanding. Many people today approach Buddhism without cultural familiarity, without inherited vocabulary, and often with hesitation or fear of asking the wrong question. In practice, AI-mediated tools already function, for a better or worse, as places where people seek clarification before they ever enter a temple or speak with a minister. For new practitioners, this significantly shortens the distance between curiosity and meaningful engagement. The process of becoming familiar with the basic concepts, Amida Buddha, Primal Law, Shinjin, Denbutsu, no longer needs to take years of uncertainty and trial and error. There is also a generational reality we must acknowledge with humility. Younger people live in a dialogical, digital, and rapidly shifting linguistic environment. When the Dharma speaks only through forms frozen in a distant historical register, or even the dialogue register, it can unintentionally appear closed, inaccessible, or disconnected from lived experience. The renewal of language is not a betrayal of the tradition. It's how the Dharma has always remained alive. The Dharma has never existed apart from translation, not only between languages, but between words. Finally, artificial intelligence enables new forms of mobility. While temples remain precious centers of Sangha life, the first encounter with the Dharma increasingly occurs outside the physical spaces, through screens, texts, and conversations that unfold across distance and time. But none of this diminishes the Dharma. It simply describes the world in which the Dharma is now being heard. We are no longer in a Japan of the 13th century or 14th century. We are no longer in a pre-war society. We are in a fully digital society. And, my dear friends, it's impossible to fight against it. We need to find ways where we can rely on and use as a tools. But we can shout, we can complain, but we cannot stop technology, unfortunately or fortunately. And if we stop here, discomfort naturally arises because possibility without grounding easily becomes anxiety. This is precisely where Shin Buddhism offers something essential, not excitement, but relief. At this point, it becomes essential to clarify with precision and calm what artificial intelligence actually is, and just as importantly, what it's not. Much of the anxiety surrounding artificial intelligence does not arise from the technology itself, but from the confusion about its nature. When something is unclear, it easily becomes a screen onto which our hopes and fears are projected. Shin Buddhism invites us to see things as they are, without exaggeration and without denial. Artificial intelligence is not a mind. It's not consciousness. It's not possessed intention, awareness, or understanding. What we call artificial intelligence refers to a group of technical systems designed to process large amounts of human-generated data. These systems identify patterns in language, images, and sounds, and then generate outputs that resemble human expression. They do so without comprehension at all, without belief, and without any inner experience. In other words, artificial intelligence does not know what it's saying. It does not mean what it produces. And most importantly, it does not understand the effects of its words. From a Buddhist perspective, the distinction is crucial. Artificial intelligence is not a sentient being. It does not possess mind in the same sense described by the Dharma. It does not give rise to intention, or therefore it does not create karma. And then it does not cultivate ignorance or wisdom. Because it has no capacity for faith, it cannot entrust itself to another Buddha. And because it has no capacity for doubt, it cannot resist the Dharma either. There is simply no religious subject present. This clarification offers a deep form of relief. If artificial intelligence has no spiritual agency, then it cannot threaten faith. It cannot replace practice, and it cannot interfere with the working of the primal law. Shin Buddhism has never taught that liberation depends on the purity of our tools or the simplicity of our environment. Liberation has never depended on the absence of mediation. It depends, yes, on the working of the other power precisely within a world shaped by conditions, limitations, and above all, imperfection. Seen in this way, artificial intelligence is neither sacred nor prophetic. It's not a rival to the Dharma, nor is it a bearer of spiritual meaning. It's a conditional phenomenon, arising within the web of causes and conditions that already shape our contemporary life. This does not mean that artificial intelligence is neutral in its effects. Tools shape environments, and environments shape human experience. But shaping conditions is not the same as shaping liberation. For practitioners, this distinction is important because it allows us to release the fear that something external could undermine the heart of our faith. For ministers and leaders, it offers clarity of responsibility. If artificial intelligence does not possess spiritual authority, then the responsibility for interpretation, guidance, and care remains fully human and fully within the Sangha. Throughout the history of Buddhism, the Dharma has always been transmitted through mediation, through voice, text, ritual, architecture, and community. Artificial intelligence does not introduce mediation into a previously unmediated tradition. It simply adds a new layer to an already mediated world. The question then is not whether mediation exists. The question is whether mediation is engaged consciously or unconsciously. And it is precisely here that Shin Buddhism emphasizes on humility and other power, becomes a guide rather than an obstacle. If liberation does not arise from our control over conditions, then we are free to examine conditions honestly, without fear and without any illusion. This ontological clarity does not close the conversation. It opens it on a stable ground. With this ontological clarity in place, we can now return to the heart of Shin Buddhism, not as a point of defense, but a point of orientation. In Jodo Shinshu, Tariki, other power, is not a doctrine we apply after the fact. It is the ground from which our entire understanding of rest, liberation, and human limitation emerges. Tariq does not describe a world without conditions. It describes liberation within a world of conditions. From the very beginning, Shin Buddhism has acknowledged that we are beings shaped by circumstances. We do not choose historical, social, psychological, and material. The path offered to us does not depend on mastering those conditions, but on entrusting ourselves on the primal law that embraces us precisely as we are. As we are. This is a direct implication for how we approach change. If liberation depended on the purity of our environment, then every new technology would be a threat. But Shin Buddhism has never made such a claim. The working of primal law does not depend on simplicity, slowness, or the absence of mediation. For this reason, Tariki functions here as a silent criterion. It does not tell us what tools to use. It tells us how to evaluate our relationship to those tools. When a new condition emerges, the question is not, does this condition contaminate the Dharma? The big question is, does our response remain grounded in humility, trust, and awareness of limitation? For practitioners, this offers reassurance. The heart of faith does not rest on controlling circumstances or avoiding complexity. It rests on being held by a vow that does not waver in changing words. For ministers and institutional leaders, Tariki introduces responsibility rather than passivity. Because liberation does not depend on conditions, we are free and obligated to examine conditions carefully, to shape them skillfully, and to refuse both fear-driven rejection and uncritical enthusiasm. Tariq frees us from two extremes. On one side, the fear that new tools will undermine the Dharma. On the other, the illusion that new tools can save the Dharma. This balance is especially important when we speak about artificial intelligence. AI does not strengthen our other power, but it does not weaken it either. Other power does not depend on the forms through which teachings are heard, studied, or shared. What does depend on us is how those forms are structured, supervised, and integrated into the life of the Sangha. Tariq does not absolve us of responsibility. It grounds responsibility in humility. In this sense, Shin Buddhism does not call us to preserve forms simply because they are old, nor to adopt new forms simply because they are new. It calls us to discern whether forms, old or new, continue to serve listening, trust, and awakening. When forms ceases to serve listening, they become obstacles rather than vessels. And when new forms are adopted without discernment, they create confusion rather than clarity. Tariq offers a way through this tension. It reminds us that the Dharma is not fragile. The Dharma does not need to be protected from the world, but it does need to be cared for within the world. This care is neither nostalgic or nor reactionary. It's attentive, responsive, and grounded in trust rather than control. With Tariki as a silent criterion, we are now able to ask more practical questions, not about belief, but about responsibility. And that brings us the question of how artificial intelligence might be engaged concretely in ways that serve the Sangha without distorting the Dharma. With Tariki as a silent criterion, we can now move from principles to practice. The question is no longer whether artificial intelligence should exist. It already does, but how it might be engaged responsibly, concretely, and without illusion within the life of the Sangha. It's important to begin with a clear boundary. Artificial intelligence should not be understood as a substitute for ministers, teachers, or human relationships. Its role, if any, lies before, around, and in support of the human encounter, never in place of it. One of the most immediate and tangible areas where AI can serve the Dharma is translation. Shin Buddhist texts, sermons, commentaries, educational materials, and historical documents often remain inaccessible simply because linguistic resources are limited. AI-assisted translation, when combined with careful human review, can dramatically accelerate access while preserving doctrinal integrity. And believe me, this is happening already. Since 5 years ago, a group of Tibetan Buddhists, they have developed the Monlam project where the entire Tibetan canon is being translated into many languages. I'd like to highlight Dharma Mitra project. It's a group of scholars that they uploaded the entire canon, Pali canon, Chinese canon, Tibetan canon into a database where you can ask questions and receive the passages of those sutras to answer those questions, along with the translation into more than 25 languages, and a corresponding explanation and suggestion to deep into those subjects. Those two tools are incredible help to all the Sangha and ministers to study. Another project I highlight here is from Fo Guang San in Taiwan, where they not only have their own model, artificial intelligence model, but they have a full department with 53 persons working in that department only with artificial intelligence. There is no project in Jodo Shinshu. There is no one single text in Japanese in Dharma Mitra. We are far behind. For practitioners, this means encountering the Dharma in their own language, with fewer barriers and less intimidation. For ministers and institutions, it means preserving, organizing, and transmitting teachings more effectively across generations and cultures. Another area is support for study and preparation. Ministers often carry a heavy burden of administrative, educational, and pastoral responsibilities. AI tools can assist with organizing notes, summarizing large bodies of text, and preparing study outlines or sermon drafts, always under human supervision and judgment. For sure, this does not replace the minister's voice, insight, or lived understanding. Rather, it reduces operational friction, freeing time and energy for what cannot be automated: listening, presence, discernment, and care. Artificial intelligence can also function as a preliminary space for inquiry. Many people hesitate to approach a minister or temple with basic questions out of fear of embarrassment or misunderstanding. In practice, AI-mediated tools already function as informal gateways, allowing people to explore concepts, vocabulary, and context before seeking deeper engagement. For practitioners, this can reduce anxiety and confusion, for sure. For ministers, it can lead to more meaningful encounters where foundational questions have already been addressed and deeper dialogue becomes possible. There is also the question of continuity beyond physical spaces. While temples remain irreplaceable centers of Sangha life, many practitioners live far from the temple, travel frequently, or face limitations due to work, health, or family obligations. AI-supported platforms can help sustain study, reflection, and connection between in-person encounters. This is not a replacement for the Sangha. It's an extension of care into the realities of our contemporary life. Across all these examples, a consistent principle must be maintained. Artificial intelligence does not teach the Dharma. It does not interpret the primal law. It does not offer Shinjin. It does not speak with authority. Because authority remains human, relational, and grounded in the Sangha. AI, at most, supports access, organization, and continuity. This distinction is essential, not only for doctrinal clarity, but for ethical integrity. Without clear boundaries, tools can quietly assume roles that were never meant to play. With clear boundaries, they remain servants rather than masters. At this point, it's natural for concerns to surface. Some of you may wonder whether reliance on such tools could weaken personal engagement. Others may worry about loss of depth, dilution of tradition, or unintended consequences. Rather than dismissing these concerns, Shin Buddhists invite us to face them directly, not defensively, but compassionately. Artificial intelligence systems are often described as if they possessed their own agency, as if they decided, judged, or understood the world. This way of speaking may be convenient, but it is deeply misleading. Algorithms does not choose values. They do not form intentions, and they do not act ethically or even unethically. They have no idea what they are talking about. What we call algorithmic bias does not originate in the machine itself. It originates before the machine ever exists. Bias enters at the human level in decisions about which data are collected, which data are excluded, how categories are defined, and which criteria are treated as normal, relevant, or desirable. These are not technical accidents. They are human actions shaped by historical, cultural, and institutional contexts. The algorithm merely formalizes and amplifies patterns that were already present there. From a Buddhist perspective, the distinction matters deeply. If we imagine algorithms as agents, we misplace a responsibility. When we recognize them instead as conditions, responsibility returns to where it belongs, to the human intention, choice, and care. Also deployed, algorithmic systems do not impose experiences in a deterministic way. Rather, they reorganize fields of attention. They make certain contents more visible, more frequent, and more familiar. Over time, what is repeated begins to feel self-evident. And what it feels self-evident is easily mistaken for what is simply real. This is not coercion. It's conditioning. And conditioning has always been a central concern of Buddhist practice. Seen in this way, algorithmic environments function as conditions that shape how people encounter information, narratives, and perspectives. They do not create intentions, but they influence which intentions are more likely to be reinforced. For our practitioners, this insight calls for mindfulness rather than fear. It invites attention to how repeated exposure shapes perception and habit. For our ministers, it introduces an ethical responsibility that cannot be delegated to technology. Transparency, supervision, and discernment are not optional here. They are part of caring for the conditions in which listening takes place. Artificial intelligence, then, is neither morally neutral nor morally autonomous. It is ethically significant precisely because it mediates human intention at scale. Understanding the situation helps us to avoid two mistakes. One is demonizing technology as if it were independent, an independent force. The other is trusting technology as if it were neutral or self-correcting. Shin Buddhism offers a middle way here, recognizing conditional causality without attributing agency where none exists, and accepting responsibility without clinging to control. With this ethical clarity in place, many of the questions that arise around artificial intelligence can now be approached more calmly and more honestly. There are no longer questions about fear or fascination, but about care, responsibility, and discernment within the Sangha. For this reason, before offering any final reflections, I would like to bring several of these questions explicitly into the room, not as objections to be dismissed, but as a compassionate provocations that help us think together more clearly. It's a good time to tell you that artificial intelligence don't do anything but organize data. And it's based in the data. Then some of you can raise their hand, but when I use ChatGPT, it gives me some weird answers. Yes, because it is based on everybody else's answers. If you don't have your model, ChatGPT is called large language model, LLM. If you don't have your own model where you shape the data that you want to be contained, it will go out and grab information from where it can. And every single LLM is programmed to please you, unless you say the opposite. So instead of give you a bad answer, if you don't say to it that, please, if you need, give me a bad answer, it will try to please you as much as it can. It's funny because it's a machine trying to please you, right? But it has no idea that he's trying to please you, okay? Why? It is programmed like this. It's not self-awareness. It's not because it's cute. It's not because it's smart. It's because it's programmed to do so, okay? And at this point, I'd like to say that many of things that you hear about artificial intelligence are fake news. I like to give some good examples. Like the other day, I was reading an article pop up on my screen saying, 2 LLMs developed their own language, and they are talking, and nobody understands what they are doing. And then it was a very sensationalistic news and blah, blah, blah. And then I went to check what was that about. Yes, 2 LLMs, linguistic LLMs, were talking because they were programmed to find a global language where everybody could speak. And they were talking because they were programmed to generate a new language. That's why they generate a new language. And it was not they wake up one day, let me talk. ChatGPT said, let me talk to Claude. Hey, Claude, let's develop a new language, you and me. Blah, 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 blah. No, it's not the way that works. So there was 2 LLMs programmed to talk to each other and develop a new linguistic form. Great, it worked. The other day, I also got this strange headline saying, LLM was feeling alone because the programmer left the console for 30 minutes and the LLM started complaining it was alone. Again, okay, let me check this. Yes, because the programmer said so. If I don't talk to you for 15 minutes, please react sadly. It was in the programming code. So he went to the bathroom and the LLM was just doing what he asked it for. Oh, I'm so lonely, please come back, because he wanted to feel connected to the machine. The problem was not the machine, the guy needs therapy. The programmer needs therapy, not the machine. The machine was just reacting for a programming. So this is important. So take care of what you heard here about. Oh, my sensei, we have this case where the Czech or LLM incentivized somebody to commit suicide. Yes, it's true, because it is programmed to please you. If you go there and say, I want to kill myself, then you will find that the best way to kill yourself with joy. But it's programming. Now it's no longer, because, of course, the programmers are putting locks in all of LLMs. But because of this wish to please you, anything you say there, the answer will be the same way. That's why when I use it, I always put in my prompt, if you don't know the answer, don't hallucinate. If you don't know the answer, tell me. If you need more information, ask me. But don't generate randomical answers. Done. All you need. At this point, I'd like to move from principles to a concrete institutional example. Not as proposal to be adopted wholesale, but as a case study of how careful, responsible engagement with artificial intelligence can take shape within a Shin Buddhist framework. This initiative is called the Shinran Keisho Project. The word Keisho means responsible, continuation. It does not mean innovation, reinterpretation, or doctrinal development. It refers to the ethical responsibility of ensuring that what has been faithfully transmitted is not lost, fragmented, or distorted as conditions change. The core aim of the Shinran Keisho project is simple and conservative: to preserve the authenticated teachings of Shinran Shonin in stable digital form, to support high-quality multilingual translation, and to ensure responsible access for ministers, scholars, practitioners, and future generations. At the heart of the project is what we might call a digital twin. This expression can sound provocative, so it's important to be precise. This is not a replacement for Shinran Shonin. It's not a new voice. And it is certainly not an autonomous interpreter of the Dharma. Rather, it's a carefully curated digital structure built exclusively from Shinran Shonin's authenticated writings, letters, and hymns. Its function is organizational and preservational. It allows texts to be indexed, cross-referenced, compared across versions and languages, and studied with a level of conscientiousness and care that would otherwise require decades of labor by small teams. Artificial intelligence is employed here only as a supporting tool within this structure, and it assists with the tasks such as textual indexing, cross-language comparison, draft translation, and identification of parallel passages. Every output is subjected to human scholarly review, correction, and approval. In this model, artificial intelligence never functions as a doctrinal voice. It does not interpret the primal law. It does not explain thinking. It does not offer guidance or teaching. Its role is strictly infrastructural, supporting human responsibility rather than replacing it. One of the most significant benefits of this approach is translation. Shin Buddhism is now a global tradition, but linguistic barriers remain one of the greatest obstacles to shared study and integration. AI-assisted translation, when governed carefully, allows multiple language communities to access the same textual corpus with a far greater speed and consistency, while still preserving the necessity of expert human oversight. The rate of accuracy of a machine-learned-based translations nowadays can be 90%, between 85 and 90%. What Suzuki took over 20 years to translate the Kyogyo Shinsho and never finish it can be done very quickly. Maybe the technology part can be in hours, few hours, like 1 hour or 2, but the revision may take some time. But we can for sure shorten that period of time by 80%, 90%. Another benefit, it lies in integration. Digital infrastructures allow materials that were previously scattered across archives, private collections, or isolated publications to be brought into coherent relationship. This strengthens doctrinal integrity and reduces the risk of selective citation or uncontextualized interpretation. From an institutional perspective, this also supports continuity. Knowledge is no longer dependent solely on individual memory or isolated expertise. It becomes a shared, reviewable, and correctable resource held in trust by the Sangha. At the same time, the project is intentionally designed with clear limitations and safeguards. The textual corpus is closed and curated. Sources are explicitly cited, and all processes are transparent and auditable. And there is always the capacity for immediate suspension or shutdown should misuse, drift, or unintended consequences emerge. These safeguards exist because the project does not assume technological neutrality. It recognizes that algorithmic systems inevitably reflect human decisions as unbiased. For this reason, ethical responsibility is related is treated not as an afterthought, but as an architectural principle. There are, of course, real challenges. Digital preservation requires long-term maintenance. Translation requires ongoing scholarly engagement. Governance requires clear accountability and institutional support. And no digital system, however well designed, can substitute for living teachers, embodied practice, or the relational life of the Sangha. The Shinran Keisho project does not attempt to solve these challenges through technology alone. Instead, it treats technology as a tool that can reduce friction, extended reach, and support integration, while leaving authority interpretation, and care firmly in human hands. Seen in this way, the project is not an experiment in innovation, but an exercise in responsibility. It asks how we might preserve fidelity while expanding access, how we might move faster without becoming careless, and how we might integrate new conditions without losing the heart of the tradition. It is offered not as a finished solution, but as one possible model for how Shin Buddhism can engage the digital world with humility, discernment, and trust in other power rather than confidence in technique. Before moving toward our closing reflections, I would like to pause and intentionally bring several questions into the center of our shared attention. These are not hostile questions, nor signs of resistance. They arise wherever there is genuine care for the Dharma, for the Sangha, and for the future of our tradition. Rather than treating these questions as problems to be solved or objections to be answered, I would like to hold them as a compassionate provocations. Questions that help us to clarify responsibility, deepen discernment, and avoid both fear and naivety. One question that often emerges is this: does relying on artificial intelligence weaken personal engagement with the Dharma? I would say that this concern invites us to examine what has always sustained engagement in Shin Buddhism. Engagement has never depended on difficulty, scarcity, or technical effort. It has depended on listening, on being encountered by the Dharma in ways that reveal our limitations and awaken trust. Artificial intelligence can lower barriers to access, but it cannot make listening happen. Listening remains an existential and relational act. No system, however advanced, can generate Shinjin or replace the lived experiencing of entrusting. Another common question follows naturally. Does artificial intelligence dilute the depth of the teaching? That, in Shin Buddhism, has never been the result of complexity, obscurity, or specialized language. It arises from the recognition of our blind passions and from the working of the primal wall. Clarity does not flatten the Dharma. Confusion does not protect it. If new tools allow the teaching to be heard more clearly, then depth is not lost. What is reduced is unnecessary distance between the Dharma and those to whom it is directed. A more institutional concern is often voiced in this way: are we at risk of replacing living teachers with machines? This is a serious question, and it cannot be answered with reassurance alone. The answer depends entirely on governance, boundaries, and ethical clarity. When roles are undefined, tools quietly assume authority. When boundaries are explicit, authority remains where it belongs, with ministers, teachers, and the living Sangha. Artificial intelligence does not interpret the Dharma. It does not speak with authority. It does not offer care. These remain irreducibly human responsibilities. Hard words. Another question often remains implicit by deeply felt. If the Dharma becomes more accessible, does it become less special? This concern touches something tender. It reflects a fear that intimacy may diminish reverence. Yet the Shin tradition has consistently pointed us to the opposite direction. The Dharma does not lose its power by drawing closer. It reveals its power precisely in closeness. Amida Buddha's compassion does not weaken by reaching more beings. It fulfills itself. At this point, the question of algorithmic bias often enters the conversation, sometimes indirectly. Can we trust systems that reflect human prejudice and limitation? This question returns us to an ethical responsibility. Algorithms does not possess bias in themselves. What they reflect are the patterns, values, and exclusions embedded by human choices. When bias appears, it does not point to a failure of machines, but to the need for greater human transparency, supervision, and accountability. From a Shin Buddhist perspective, this is not surprising. Conditioning has always shaped perception and habit. The technical task is not to imagine neutral conditions, but to care responsibly for the conditions we create and inhabit. Finally, there is perhaps the most honest and human question of all. What if we make mistakes? Shin Buddhism does not promise that our decisions will be flawless. We have never transmitted the Dharma from a position of mastery or certainty. We transmit it as limited beings, relying not on perfect judgment, but on the working of the other power. The question then is not whether mistaken will occur, but the question is whether we remain transparent, humble, and willing to correct course together as a Sangha. These questions do not call us to retreat from the word. They call us to walk forward carefully, together, and without illusion. They remind us that the Dharma does not demand urgency, nor does it reward avoidance. It calls for discernment grounded in trust. With these questions held openly and compassionately, we are now ready to move toward our closing reflections. Not with final answers, but with a clear sense of shared responsibility. As we come to the close of this reflection, it may be helpful to pause and notice where we now stand. We have not tried to resolve every question, nor to offer definitive solutions. That has not been the intention. What we have attempted here is something more modest and perhaps more faithful to the Shin tradition. We have tried to look clear at the world as it is, without fear and without illusion, and to ask how the Dharma continues to be heard within it. Artificial intelligence in itself is not the central issue, my friends. The deeper issue is how we as Sangha respond to changing conditions while remaining grounded in trust rather than control. Shin Buddhism does not ask us to protect the Dharma from the world. The Dharma has never depended on our ability to preserve it in a pure or untouched form. It has endured because it has always met beings where they are, in the midst of the complexity, limitation, and change. What is entrusted to us is not the defense of forms, but the care of listening, not the preservation of structures for their own sake, but the cultivation of conditions in which trust can arise. This care is a shared responsibility. Practitioners and ministers, lay people and leaders all participate in shaping the environment in which the Dharma is encountered. No single role carries this responsibility alone. Tariq reminds us that liberation does not arise from our skill, our planning, or technological sophistication. It arises from the working of primal vow, which embraces us precisely as limited beings living in an imperfect world. Because of this, we are freed from both fear and triumphalism. We do not need to rush to adopt every tool, nor do we need to retreat from the world as it unfolds. We can move forward with discernment, humility, and patience. If artificial intelligence is to be engaged, it would be done transparently, ethically, and always in service of human encounter and Sangha life. Where it no longer serves listening, it should be set aside. Where it helps reduce unnecessary distance, it may be received with care. The question before us then is not whether the Dharma will survive these changes. The Dharma does not depend on us for its survival. The question is whether we will remain attentive responsible, and compassionate participants in the conditions through which the Dharma continues to reach living beings. If we can hold this question together without fear, without illusion, and without abandoning one another, then the form of our response takes matters less than the spirit in which it is carried. May we continue to listen deeply, to care wisely, and to trust the working of the Primal of all as we walk this path together. Namo. Thank you. Now, thank you for your attention, but now I would like to make some demonstration of the Shiran Keisho project that we are calling Shiran.ai. And I'll also show you the My Digital Twin. I have a Hondaku.ai, which is my digital twin, where I have uploaded all my knowledge and all my studies, all the books I read, most of them, into a model, and you can speak with me and you can interact with me in my own voice in 25 different languages. So this is the basis of the Shiran Keisho project, where we want to develop a digital twin of Shiran Shonin, to whom you can talk to and ask questions and get his knowledge and wisdom available to everybody in many, many different languages. So if you allow me, I'll change places here. And then I can show you the demo. So let me introduce you to Shiran Shonin.
Sounds like the video isn't coming through. Is the camera turned on, or maybe the connection is a bit shaky? You might try refreshing the call or checking your device's camera settings.
Sensei,
Let me know if that...
nice to meet you. I am Mauricio Hondaku, a minister from Jodo Shinshu School. How are you today, sir?
Nice to meet you, Mauricio. I'm well, thank you. It's a joy to share the path of Amida's compassionate vow with fellow practitioners. How may I support you today?
I'd like to understand better what Nembutsu is.
The Nembutsu is simply the heartfelt recitation of Namu Amida Butsu, which means I take refuge in Amida Buddha. In Shinran's teaching, it isn't a merit-earning technique or a self-power practice. It's an expression of gratitude and true and trusting Shinjin in Amida's primal vow. By saying the name, we rely on the other power that already embraces all beings, allowing us to be born in the Pure Land. The practice is open to everyone, whether monk, layperson, or anyone living ordinary daily life. It reflects the compassion of all Buddhas who say the name and serves as the gateway to awakening through faith.
Sensei, how can we attain Shinjin?
Shinjin, true and trusting, arises when we open our heart fully to Amida's primal vow. First, we hear the name, Namu Amida Butsu, and let it sink deeply, not as a ritual, but as sincere gratitude. Then we place our whole trust in Amida's compassion, letting go of self-effort jiriki and resting in other power tariki. A single-hearted recitation, coupled with a sincere aspiration to be born in the Pure Land, awakens Shinjin. When we truly believe that Amida's vow will rescue us, the mind is free from doubt and heavy karma and Shinjin blues. So in practice, 1. Hear the name clearly, often from
The internet. Sensei, I'm here in front of almost 100 persons, all interested in Jodo Shinshu. What is your message to this people who are interested in Jodo Shinshu and wants to attain Shinjin.
Dear friends, thank you for gathering with open hearts. Jodo Shinshu teaches that true change comes not from our own striving, but from entrusting fully in Amida's boundless compassion. When you sincerely recite Namu Amida Butsu, you are expressing gratitude for the vow that promises birth in the Pure Land. This simple, heartfelt utterance awakens Shinjin, true and trusting, that frees the mind from doubt and karmic weight. Let your practice be an everyday act of trust, not a forceful effort. Allow Amida's other power to guide you, and you will experience the deep transformation. Is there something specific you'd like to...
Thank you, Sensei. We will close the conference now. Thank you for kind words.
Thank you all for sharing this time together. May Amida's compassion continue to guide each of you. Take care.
Shinran Keisho project. This is just a demo. I have uploaded only 9 first texts of collected works of Shinran there. And of course, first question my programmer said, Sensei, how does he sound? I said, I have no idea. The guy died 800 years ago. I have no idea how his voice sounds. Put any voice there. And then this picture, I got this from my scroll. I scanned the scroll and then I asked ChatGPT to generate a human figure based on the scroll, and then it generates this. So this could be more or less how Shinran looked like. But this is an example. Of course, this is not more important. The video is good to interact, maybe it's more marketing than anything, but what is important is what is behind that. The level of information that we can upload into the model to make sure that we give curated and responsible answers to the people. Well, I always have, I have here too my own. So after you have all the links in a minute. I'll have prepared QR codes here with all the links, but you can talk to me. So you can go here for chat, direct chat, and here you can talk to me. I don't have the video, but we can talk and we can call me in different languages too. So I can speak everything but Arabic, Bulgarian, Chinese, Croatian, Czech, Danish, whatever. Okay, and you can talk to me the same way. I need to generate a code here, just a second. And this is for free. I'll give you the link. You can use it as much as you want.
Hello, my name is Honda. This is the digital version of my knowledge. Welcome. Sadhu Sadhu.
Hello, Sensei. I'm your human version. How are you today?
Hey, good to hear from my human side. I'm here, steady and ready. How about you?
I'm here in the Hompahonganji, Los Angeles bed swing, speaking about AI and Buddhism. How can you tell something about that?
That's a powerful combination, Ompahonganji and AI. It reminds me that Buddhism is always about meeting the moment we live in, right? AI can be like a mirror or a tool, reflecting our inner struggles with anger, greed, and ignorance, or helping us to see them more clearly. How are you connecting these two worlds where you are?
I am explaining to them how we can use artificial intelligence tools to spread the Dharma. Do you have any ideas, Sensei?
That's a great approach. AI can help us reach more people by translating sutras, offering accessible teachings, and connecting seekers with guidance anytime. The key is to use it wisely, not replacing human compassion, but amplifying the Buddha's message with tools like automated translation, chat support, and even personalized practice reminders. How are you planning to introduce these tools where you are?
Wait, no.
Hello, my name is Honda.
I know your name.
This is the digital version.
I know you, my friend. Well, I will try to speak Japanese. Or something that I'm more used to, Italian. Oops, the Italian version is not available. Maybe he's having lunch.
Ciao, mi chiamo Hondaku. Questa è la versione digitale delle mie conoscenze. Benvenuto. Sadhu Sadhu.
Grazie maestro, come stai oggi? Io sono qui a Los Angeles Between per una lettura su intelligenze artificiali, buddismo. Chi può parlare un po' di questo?
Grazie a te, sto bene, grazie. Intelligenza artificiale e buddismo, olha que combinação interessante. A mente humana é complexa demais. E o budismo nos ajuda a entender sofrimento e despertar, enquanto a IA...
So I tested in Arabic and Korean and Japanese. You want me to him in Japanese, right? So, and it seems that it works very fine. Let me see, Japanese.
こんにちは。私の名前は本田です。これは私の知識のデジタル版です。ようこそ、サドサドゥ。
どうもありがとう、先生。お元気ですか? Oops. This Japanese music is not good. I don't need to talk to my Koreans. Okay, I promise to fix before you connect here. So, if you wanna navigate, these are the links. So you can connect. And this third link here, it's an interview with me that was launched yesterday, freshly released in the Buddhist store, where I talk about digital intelligence and a little bit of my biography. The journalist is a member of Nishon Ganji, and he made a very nice job reflecting all the ideas we have. So the digital Shina is a demo. It's going to be available for a couple of days, maybe 2 or 3 weeks, and then we will start to do the real stuff, so we can use until there. And the Hondaku.ai, it's free of charge, and you guys can use, no problem at all. If you need to get in touch with me, the email is there, and my Instagram too. So it's here. I conclude my speech, thanking you all to be here and hear this exciting subject. And I'm available to the next phase. We are open for questions, and I'll get a chat with my friend Takashi Sensei about the subject, and then we can interact a little more. Thank you very much for all of you that was watching in Instagram. Thank you for your audience. We are shutting down here.
Okay, well, thank you very much. I'd like to get started with the second portion of today's talk. All right, well, thank you very much. Nice to see all your faces here today. Thank you. So I think for the next portion until noon today, what we'll do is carry on with some Q&A session. At the very outset of it, I do have a couple of words on just kind of my commentary on it. I'll just put in my 2 cents here, and then kind of open it up to the floor thereafter. So if I may start here. Today's talk, thank you very much for today's talk. It's a wonderful talk. I really appreciated that you mentioned, I think one of the things that stood out for me is, that AI cannot make Shinjin for us, right? I think, the other day you were giving me a conversation, which didn't come up today, but what Hondaku Sensei was talking about was, he says, we use like a notepad or like our iPhones, I'm sorry, when we have like errands or things that happened, we remember it in our brains. So let's say there's someone who is, who's suffered from dementia or has Alzheimer's, there's a notepad, that they can take notes on that will kind of, help them and serves kind of in some ways as the brain, or it becomes this tool, it becomes an extension of the individual. And so when I think about that, then this AI becoming this tool, or this computer itself becoming a tool, and I think about the seven masters, the only two people of the seven masters who have met in person are, Taocho and Shandao. Yet, the Dharma has been transmitted, right? And for Taocho, he read the inscription of Tanlan, and then has this kind of, what we call Ichinempo here, has this kind of turning of the heart, turns into the Pure Land tradition. And then for Honen Shonin, what he does is he reads the entire Buddhist canon, the Tripitaka, right? And then stumbles on Zendo's words, and then has, again, this arising of Shinjin occurrence that happens. And so then this moment of Shinjin arises in the writings, right? In the writings. And so from these examples, it's through the use of words that Shinjin was able to arise in the individual. And the reason for this is because what these people encountered was hearing the voice of the Buddha. That for Taocho, he heard the Buddha's calling voice through Tanlan. For Honen Shonin, he heard the Buddha's calling voice through Shandao. We too, when we listen to the Dharma message, we should be listening for the Buddha's calling voice. Right? We should not be listening to the minister per se, right? The ministers, how they had a bad time with the DMV the other day, or if they get cut off on the freeway and they feel like punching someone in the face. These are the ministers' words, right? But what we have to be listening for is the Buddha's calling voice that's supposed to be coming through the minister, right? So the minister then becomes this the mediator, right? And then in the texts, those become the mediator, the tool. And I think AI then now becomes this tool. AI is where we get the information. AI cannot give us Shinjin because it's not Buddha. What we have to do is truly hear the Buddha's calling voice. But we have to, listen for that. We have to listen for that. And I think that that's something that carrying forward as I was listening to Honda Sensei speak was something that we're as people who are going to be, curators of this amazing tool. We have to really kind of keep that in mind. That we have to listen for the Buddha's voice that is coming through the computer screen, that is coming through AI, of this Shindan AI that we just saw right now. I think that's one of the things that I kind of really wanted to center in on today. Okay. So with that said, then another question that I have for Sensei here is to kind of open it up to the Q&A session is, we're constantly, you've alluded to this too as well, is that we're constantly given answers that we want to hear, and it's very easy to get caught up in this world where we're just, having these conversations with AI and we're creating this bubble that we want to see, right? I mean, whatever your political views are, what you're getting fed the information of the world that you want to see, right? And so in a sense, in this saha or samsara world, this world of delusion, we're creating and fabricating another delusion, right? And it's a world we want to see. And it's a delusion within a delusion. And I think you can keep going with that ad infinitum, delusion within the delusion within the delusion. And I just kind of wanted to see Sensei, what your thoughts are on that thought.
Yeah, this is a way of see things, and the same way we had when internet started. It's I was commenting with Sensei outside. Everything has the bright side and the dark side. Even this neighborhood. If I walk here around the night, maybe I can find the drug dealers. I can find maybe I can attack here or in a big city. But I choose not to go through danger dangerous street. So I walk around, and then I prefer to stay in the safe side. We always have this internet. Well, maybe all of you here were here when the internet started, and then we have these forums, and then we had these group chats where everybody was hanging there for hours and hours and hours and hours. And a lot of people said that would break the social relations because people was inside those group chats for hours during the night. That was not true. We still have the social engagements and social gatherings. Our kids, not only the kids, but someone else, like to play games. So stay in front of a computer playing games all night long, and it's true. That can be useful or can be harmful. And I think, but going back to the question, I think we are experts in generate illusions since the beginning. We are experts. We live in a way, and I am one of my lines of studies, Yogacara philosophy. And Asanga Vasubandhu, they used to say that we experience the reality we built. So everything we experience is based on our previous experience, which is projected to define the reality. So, since we are very experts to produce alternative realities, we don't need artificial intelligence alone to do that. The confirmation bias we live in, especially like when you mention political sides, it's automatically triggered, even if we hear some news or some fake news in your WhatsApp, Telegram applications. There is a risk, yes, there is a risk. There is a risk for people to be inserted in a world, in a virtual world, yes, but the only thing I think is that the AI will only speed up or give a physical or virtual form to the illusion that we are already living in. So the AI is not guilt. Who is guilty? It's ourselves. That, like I mentioned, that somebody needs a therapy, maybe AI will speed up things, and that therapist needs to be seen faster than we thought. So, because we are reflecting who we are. If I want to create, like I work with artificial intelligence almost 24 hours because only for my work, for my Buddhist studies, I'm deeply involved with that. But I never create an alternative world for me. The opposite. There is sometimes I just stand up and I want to ride my bike or I want to go to my Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu classes, and that AI cannot fulfill. So because I see those as a tool, not as a target. But I agree with Takashi Sensei. There is a risk, always.
Yeah, when I think about that, like, especially with Jodo Shinshu, who really harps on this idea of the human condition and that we are, engulfed with our blind passions, right? And you talk about how to be ethical with AI, how to be responsible with that. And I think ideally I would like to be that, and I would like to be responsible and ethical. But can we trust ourselves? And the other thing is who then polices the police? Like, what if you talk about authority? What if there are this authority? Let's say it becomes Hongaji that monitors this AI to ensure that it's being conducted correctly. But then, what happens if, who's watching Hongaji? In that sense.
That's what we call. I use this term, algorithmic bias. That was created by one student of mine. He created this term, algorithmic bias, and I asked him if I could put in this paper because I was so impressed that he came up with this idea. The algorithmic bias is like that. Who fights the algorithmic bias? Because once if in one side we have AI, it's based on what we fulfill it with the data we put inside, okay? That data can be contaminated by our algorithmic bias. Because the same way we have a confirmation bias, we can translate into the tool. So that's why I talk about that we need to be good curators for that. And basically, like when we talk about, there's another project that we were thinking about this week with Takashi Sensei, Jerry Sensei about it. It's a model where everybody from Jodo Shinshu could use. We gave the name of UN AI. And that would be interesting, but the first thing we thought was, okay, who is going to manage the data that we're going to insert there? So my first suggestion is, let's base ourselves in the canon. Let's base ourselves in something that is cannot be changed or will not be interpreted. So let's keep away from the commentaries. Let's keep away in the first phase from the ideas, the human ideas behind that, to avoid the algorithmic bias. So one of the policies that can be established here is like we have a collegiate of scholars or experts that can decide what needs to be there. That's 100% bulletproof? No, it's not. Because we're still dealing with people, we're still dealing with human sentient beings, and errors can occur. But sometimes, maybe you hear something from anybody that's generating an error too. Somebody has a strange idea about a Buddhist term or idea, and it speaks loudly about it, and we hear it. It's up to us to say, I believe in that. Well, I don't think that's right. The same is going to occur with the AI. We will try always to be the perfect, but it's impossible to be completely perfect. We need to be perfect enough. So let's treat the data before it goes to the AI, and then we can maybe contain the data there as much as we can and have a good accuracy. 100% accuracy, I doubt we will ever reach.
Thank you. Yeah, one of the things that okay, we'll get to in a second. One of the things that I thought was, in hearing your talk, this sense of imminence. We got to get on this, set the parameters before someone else does, because it won't take long for average Joe Schmo who feels like they know everything about Shima Shoring and says, guess what? This is what Shima says, go kill everybody, or something like that, or something crazy. So we need to make sure that there is parameters that are being set and that we get on this, I think, because I think it's something that is inevitable, for better or for worse. Yeah.
Would you imagine not official group decides to put this together and be a reference that we cannot dare to have this situation. We need to, like what Dharma Mitras did, what Moulan did, they were pioneers. So now we were talking, why do we need to put below the Chinese canon to our LLM? I don't need it. I just pointed to Dharma Mitra and I get the information they have there. Oh, but we need to trust them. Yes, we need to trust them. We need to filter the information to be sure it's accurate, but I don't need to I don't need to upload the entire, I don't know how many volumes of the Chinese canon in Chinese, Orthodox Chinese, in our model, and spend a lot of money translating that into something that is readable, because somebody else already did. So we can integrate and make sure that we are connected. So we don't need to reinvent the wheel, but we need just to, enhance that.
Great, thank you. There's a hand in back here.
Yes. So, along the lines of your conversation, first of all, I think it's so exciting to see the Shinran Keisho demonstrated. I mean, I think that there's so many opportunities. But my question is kind of along the lines of what you're talking about. and that is, it seems transparent to me that you're working on this, you're developing this product or application, but who is sponsoring the project, the Shigan Keisho project, and who are the stakeholders?
I'm here just, well, this is an idea we have.
Let me just stop for the online. The question is that, who's developing the application, who is sponsoring this project, who are the stakeholders?
Maybe if people use the microphone.
Yeah, there's a mic, so in case you can do so, if you can come up to the microphone and speak into the mic, that'll pick up everything. Thank you.
One of the reasons of this trip is also to present this to YBS and the DCA to present this project. This is just a demo, believe it or not, that was developed in 3 hours by my programmers. While I was driving with Jerry Sensei from Salt Lake City. Just because Jerry Sensei asked, oh, about the Shiran Keisho project, do you have a demo? I said, no, but that's not fine. And then I talked to my team in Brazil, and they say, oh, Sensei, we have other things to do. I say, but don't worry, we will do it. And then they send the picture, send the voice. I said, I cannot send the voice, I don't know how it sounds. And then send the text. I need text. So I keep sending things, and we were crossing Utah while I was doing that, and then 3 hours after, like 1 hour, less than 1 hour, my programmer called and said, okay, it's rendering. Within 2 hours we'll be ready, and then we tested while we were arriving at Reno. So I had the project, but I didn't have the demo. So now I have the demo. But answer your question, I'm offering this to VCA and IBS to be the sponsors. I don't have any sponsor. I'm putting my money here, meanwhile, and I came here to offer you guys to create a collegiate, to create a committee to manage this. I don't want to manage this alone, and to offer you guys to lead this transformation with me.
So I guess my comment is that I hope that BCA RBS seizes this opportunity, and so that we're not 10 years behind next year.
Yeah. So the comment was that hopefully we can seize this opportunity so that we won't be behind. Yeah, that it really struck me that you said that Taiwan and Tibet, those Buddhist schools were kind of already uploading everything, and then you went to a conference in London. There's only 2 people from Japan, or Jodo Shishu, and there's you and a person. But see, if you look at the history of Jodo Shishu or the history of Honganji, the Ontani expeditions to collect artifacts in the Asian continent through the Silk Road. That was a trailblazing project, right? It depleted the funds of Nishin Honganji. But anyway, that's but the idea behind it was fantastic, right? To go and collect artifacts. And then to come to America, to branch out of Japan and go to spread the Buddha Dharma, to come to America, that is a trailblazing project. No one else even thought of doing that, right? So Nishin Honganji and Higashi Honganji were the first to do that within all the Japanese schools of Buddhism. And so it's in our blood to try something new and to trailblaze and think about new ways in which to reach out to people. I think one of the things that you also mentioned was accessibility, that the gap gets closed, right? When I think about myself and when I was very critical of religion and Buddhism in general, but over time I was having more and more conversations with my father, I thought, and that closeness there, where I can be frank with him and be like, hey, so where's the parallel? So why do we have 2 Ogupa for Amida Buddha right here? What's the difference between Higashi and Nishin Honganji? All of these questions I can just ask frankly, straight up, right? Is as opposed to waiting every Sunday service, right? That I can do that really quickly and get the information, I think was huge in closing that gap and sensing this intimacy with the Buddha Dharma. Again, not to say that can replace my my dad or whatever, or the closest, but it is to say that information should be readily accessible, and that's what we're trying to do.
Let me give you some numbers. Our numbers are good to as examples. I started the Hondaku.ai clone. I started that back in May. I had this student of mine that came to visit me in Spain, and I don't know if you know, but back in May there was a huge blackout in Spain and Portugal. We stayed like 2 days without electricity, without power. And I was with him and my wife in a winery up in the north of the country without power. But we had the wine, what was good. We didn't depend on power to pop the cork. So we started talking about it because he's the lead of this company, Maxmi AI, and he offered me, he said, listen, I have this new project of cloning people, or cloning, make a digital twins of people. Don't you want to do yours? And you be my showcase, if you don't mind. I said, okay, let's do it. And then I was with my computer, he was with his, and the only thing we had was 5G, so we started doing this in that blackout. So in 2 days, we put all the information there. So I have all my YouTube videos uploaded, I have all my lectures uploaded, all the papers I wrote, and most important, Buddhist texts and books I have read. And then I could have it in a digital form. So we have more than 10 gigabytes of information there. So when you talk to me, we're talking to literally to my knowledge. And for those who think that tear people apart, because after I published this in Instagram, the Hondaku.ai, I had now 55 students connected all over the world, studying with me that were not together before me, because of Hondaku.ai. They talk to Hondaku.ai, and then they come to me and say, I talked to your digital twin, and he told me this, and that. Please explain better this, what you mean about that. So I keep receiving every day things like this. And you know, they go and they talk because they say, I don't want to bother you with the silly questions. I'll ask the silly questions to your AI. But I want to get more deep knowledge from you. It's great because I don't have to repeat the same answer, like, why don't you have a temple in my town? What do I need to do to start pressing? So it's the same questions. They can talk to the AI. So this is a good example. We will send 55 students connected here to my Telegram group, and we are together every week.
Are there any questions? I'd like to kind of open it up to the floor. Sure, thanks. Good one to use the microphone. Yeah, use the microphone, please, so we don't need to.
Thank you very much. I'm feeling really grateful right now that we have this opportunity to hear about AI. In ways, I represent one of those little old people in the boomer generation who's been intimidated by technology. And when we hear about AI, there's a certain threat that comes with that. But I realize mostly because we are not really very well informed about what it is. And so I appreciate your explanation about AI as a tool. I'm wondering about how, well, there's two things. One is I'm wondering about how we can explain this technology to people in my generation in ways that they can understand using our metaphors, if you will, of conveying information that we can relate to. And so it's a generational thing, I suppose. And then number two would be, how can people in my generation support this project in concrete and productive ways? Thank you.
That's a good, I think a good comparison we can do it, I must say. It's back when we used to have libraries, physical libraries. And your teacher asked you to make a paper or to write a paper about the American Civil War. You get your mom, get into the library, and then you ask the librarian, hey, man, I need at least 5 or 6 books about the American Civil War. Can you point me where to get it? And then she will get you to the big drawers with all those cards. 1, 2, 3, 4, and then you get a cart, passing through the corridors, getting all of the books, and then you sit there for 3 days, reading and copying what you need, extracting from those books what was necessary to put that paper together. AI is the librarian. So AI does exactly this, exactly, but much faster. If you write for you, if you find the books for you and writes for you, that's the same process. AI works in the same process of a library. Goes and gets information from many different sources, many different books, and gives you an answer. So instead of going to the library, unfortunately, we are lying. You have it here. Much faster, accessible, and not only 6 books, but 6,000 books can be consulted in a glimpse of time and give you the best information possible. You know, sometimes we tend always to see the dark side of things, but I don't know if you know that today artificial intelligence is helping doctors to detect more than 1,300 different types of breast cancer that the humans could not identify. Many lives are being saved because of artificial intelligence. This is just one of the examples. The other example that I work for Amazon, and we have this famous Echo, Amazon Echo, known as Alexa, and it was very nice to see how that improved a lot of interaction of elder people, because it became a companion for a lot of elder. I know because my mother-in-law, she loves her Alexa because she talks to Alexa all day long. This is AI. See? If you have Waze in your phones, it's AI. But now we have to think about this in terms of expanded mind, like Takashi Sensei said. I'm a big fan of a modern philosopher called Andy Clark. Andy Clark has a great book called Supersizing the Mind, in which he explains how the mind is attached to artificial connections, not only in the brain. Like Takashi Sensei said, when you have Alzheimer, you need to rely on a notebook to keep track of your thoughts. If you are a normal person, you use your brain, so your brain is part of your mind, and the notebook is part of the mind of this Alzheimer. So this is the idea of the extension of our minds, and not a replacement.
But like going back to the conversation that you were saying about your mother-in-law that you speaking to was, how, I guess what I'm wondering is, she's essentially having these conversations as if to say it was a real person. So is she doing what we're kind of worried about, which is relying on the tool, right, and replacing the tool with the actual other person? And where does that line?
It's interesting because my mother-in-law, she has this confirmation algorithm of confirmation bias already. Mm-hmm. So Alexa will never replace that because she believes in some things that never mind. And she talks, and the Alexa will only confirm the confirmation bias she has. Like if you have if you think that Earth is flat, Alexa will give all the tools that you can confirm your belief because it's programmed to please you again. So we never say, "Oh no, come on, guys, Earth's not flat. Be real."
Like a yes.
Yeah.
AI is a yes man.
Yeah. So this can change, yes, can. But the other way around, this is the dark side, which is the bright side. She has somebody to talk with. She lives alone in a big house, and all the sons and daughters live far away. And but she listens to the music she wants. She listens to the books she wants. and she asked questions about things about the world, about the reality. So I see this in a much more positive way than negative. Yes, you are right, like I said, everything can happen, everything can happen. But sometimes she said, oh, Alexa told me this, this, and that. And then we say, okay, but that's not true. We say that. But the way she asks, she will always receive a positive answer. Because this is the way AI is driven. Maybe we can change this in the future, and then, but I think all the programmers, all the model programmers like Claude or OpenAI, they did that to avoid fear. So if you build a sympathetic version of AI, people will not be afraid to use. But I have a GPT here, I have an agent here that is also developed by a friend of mine. That's a reality check. If you talk to him, you're gonna laugh because he say things like, "Are you crazy about this? No, are you crazy? Are you thinking about it? Wow, what do you have in mind when you said that? It's programmed to do that. It's funny. Sometimes I talk to you, especially when I want a real opinion. So that's it."
Thank you, Sensei, for coming today and having this conversation. I don't
It's
That's the last you'll get.
Okay.
Here.
So I have like to hear your thoughts on the authority aspect of it. When you present this image of Shinran for a newcomer or maybe even somebody who's been in the tradition for a long period of time, it's very easy for that to become the authority figure. And I kind of worry about that because I think of connection with the Sangha as being the most authoritative thing in our tradition. And I'd like to hear what you think about that. And in addition, maybe something that happens often is people are starting to use ChatGPT and the like as a therapist. It's also something that ministers experience is the request for therapy, essentially, right? And is there a role here, or is there a danger in this kind of Shinran AI in that space?
Yeah.
Thank you.
I think before, in Buddhism, we have a hierarchy. And the highest position in the hierarchy is the Dharma. So everything below Dharma is holy, it's upaya. It's something that we need to rely on as human beings to believe or to understand the Dharma. The authority for me is not the Sangha, not even the Buddha, is the Dharma. Once we can contain ourselves into the Dharma, we have the right authority there. Because it's not based, the Dharma is not based on opinions, it's not based on reflections, it's based on truth. So, a Sangha, we can discuss here, and maybe if we open here and then I ask you what Shinjin is, we'll have 120 different answers. But the canon tells me what Shinjin is. The Dharma tells me what Shinjin is. So, I don't want to sound dogmatic here, but sometimes I think that we need to rely on Buddha's word first, and then going down into the hierarchy. That's why when we create properly a model, we have the right answers. Not the perfect one, but some accuracy. About the using the tools as a therapist, well, since Alta Vista, for those who remember Alta Vista, and people used to diagnose themselves using Google and Alta Vista, and still like that way. I really doubt if any of you here never put something in the Google and said, oh, I'm feeling this, what is it about? I doubt you never do that. Everybody does. So instead, prior to go to the doctor, said, oh, I have this headache every day, what could be? And the only problem is that Google usually says you have cancer. You read, and oh, but that could be a cancer. Come on, man. Every time it could be a cancer. And maybe the ChatGPT will tell you, oh, it's nothing. You don't need to go to the doctor. No worries. That's going to pass. It's just another tool to help people, to put their anxiety together. Before Google, before Alta Vista, you had maybe the barbers, maybe you had the Sangha, you had the squares, the encounters on the squares, and then we share this with your colleague. Oh, no, I have a backache here. Do you know what could be? Oh, I have a wonderful medicine that you can do. Try this. That happened just this week. I have gout. And I was having a crisis. And I was with Jerry Sensei there, and Jerry said, oh, I have a good medicine for you. I have this white cherry juice. And by the way, it works. And you can take this. So before we had this human interaction, we just kept doing the same thing, but now using electronic tools. If you don't ask ChatGPT, you're going to ask somebody else. You're going to ask your friend, and going to ask you here while you have refreshments. And then, like we were in one of the temples, Jason temple, we were talking about how bad we are with backache. And so every time we get together, we complain about our health. But just to finish, it's a risk. Yes, it's a risk. And the companies that own those models, they need to treat that. One of the tenets we have in the Shinran AI project is once it detects any life threats or anything that could indicate some psychological problem, it will stop the conversation and guide the person to a therapist, to a professional help. This is a tenet of the project. If you go to Hondaku AI has the same tenets. It will drive you to a mental health professional, if it detects any sign of problem.
Thank you very much. I was excited to hear you mention libraries. For 30 years, I've been what used to be called a librarian. The focus of my studies was information ethics. And I remember when I went to school, this is before the internet, the internet came along and people said, you're going to be out of job. AI has now come along and people are saying, you're going to be out of job. I now coordinate the largest global team of information professionals I've ever coordinated. And it's actually considered one of the fastest growing areas of work right now because information persists. If you look historically at how far we've come, they burned the Library of Alexandria, they burned books in Germany. They're always attacking the information because it was physical. And the idea was if we can erase the information, we erase the spread of what's going on. With AI and the internet, we have the greatest playing field leveler that we've ever had as information professionals. People who have never had access to books and libraries and these physical places now have access to these online stores. Everybody's got phones. This year it's all about the wearables and being able to talk to the wearables that you're wearing. So this isn't going away. And basically what I wanted to do was join my colleague here and say, this is now a huge opportunity for IBS, BCA, for any group, but you have to get ahead of it. You do have to control that information that's going in there. And I think that's where the opportunity is. Get ahead of it now before somebody gets ahead of you and starts putting in the bad stuff, the inaccurate stuff. So thank you. This is absolutely fantastic.
Just a comment. It's funny because I think I never bought so many books like I'm buying now. You know why? Because every time I ask AI for something and it gives me a nice answer, it gives a reference. I say, I need to buy this book. And then I look at the reference and I buy the book. So last time I count, I had 46 books in my waiting to be read in my library because I keep buying books like crazy because of that. Because I just think, oh, but this is a very nice quotation. I need to understand that better. Look at the book. And I have bought a lot of physical books too. So the same way. So it's funny because I now have access to titles of books that I didn't know they exist. Or even from scholar papers that I didn't know would exist because of my interactions with it.
Thank you so much. Oh, yes. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yeah. It's more for the people who are remote.
Well, I guess to preface my remarks, I guess I wouldn't be here if it weren't for people, trying to put information out on the internet. So I'm very grateful for people who kind of took those first steps. I wouldn't want to the Institute for Studies. I wouldn't be a faculty member there. So I'm very grateful for the people who took those initial steps. My question for you is not so much about the responsible use of AI, but the ethics of AI itself as a structure or technology. Actually, just kind of piggyback on the remarks that Sensei made. AI is not immaterial. It's highly, massively material. It's run at, I'm saying this for the sake of most people here in this room, not so much for you, Sensei. They're run through data centers, massive institutions that can be miles long, filled with servers that just run and run and run. The servers themselves need highly specialized chips that are made with rare earth minerals that come from places like Congo, Venezuela, other places around the world that are impoverished and exploited. So these materials come together into these warehouses that, many of them are here in the United States, across the Midwest, and in Florida. They take up an incredible amount of water, of energy, electricity. They can be heard for miles around, so they scare birds and animals away. They contaminate water systems. People are getting sick because they live near data centers, and people don't like them. They're getting them pushed out of their, Amazon wants to come in, X wants to come in, Alphabet, Meta, whoever, Netflix wants to create a data center in Muncie, Indiana, and they say no, we don't want it. So the people there are speaking up and they're pushing back on this. And so I guess my concern is with this sort of media, among other things like Brock creating CSAN for people, we can ask about that later. Do we really want to hitch our wagon to AI in that way? When it's not only creating considerable environmental damage, is involved in exploitative extraction of rare materials that cause, contribute to our climate crisis. Do we really want to hitch our wagon to that? I understand your ethical use of AI, creating different tools, and I think that's all well and good. I'm sure people, I guess, would be curious to hear you guys about what tools you have to offer us or what we can sponsor. But I wonder about those and what's the Shinshu response to the kinds of externalities that AI creates? So I'd be very curious to hear what you have to say about that. I know that's a lot, but thank you very much.
No, I understood. And this is a common question that always arises. Well, 85% of 5G network in America runs through the same data centers of AI is running. So it's not a question of AI, it's a question that the technology. AI is not the problem because the same server that runs AI runs your 5G connection. Verizon has 100% of its data centers now inside a hyperscale data centers. The same service which runs the AI runs your Telegram, runs your WhatsApp, runs your Waze, runs your email, So it's not a question of AI because it's the same data center for everything you can imagine in terms of technology. It's the same data center that runs your Tesla. It's the same data center that connects you with the police radios are connected. Police radios, they are all digital. We are not talking about antennas that are walkie-talkies. We are talking about digital connection through a network of data that passes through the same data center. So the question here is not to demonize the AI because the AI is consuming the data centers. The data center, and I'm telling you because I wrote that. So the data centers are holding all the tools, most of the tools that you use today. If you use something or some software of any kind, or if you have a phone running 5G, you are using the same resources and generating the same problems, environmental problems, that anybody else. So we have two chances here. Or we attack the problem in terms of completion, or say, if you, okay, let's put a campaign not to use AI anymore, but together with all other tools that run together with the AI. So let's drop our phones, let's go back to landed lines, and let's drop our computers because the Wi-Fi we are using passes through the same data centers. The only thing is that the information about those consumptions show up as a now. But that consumption are there for almost 2 decades. Oh, it's growing up? Yes, it's growing up. It's true. And I think it's the responsibility of the vendors to create clean energy to sustain the technology. I think it's the vendors who need to treat the water. I think it's the vendors who need to compensate this somehow. Our responsibility is to make sure they do it, to put pressure for that to be done. Because I don't believe that anybody here wants to get rid of the technology we carry in our pockets because of it. But we as Buddhists can be part of a movement to make sure that Amazon, Google, Oracle, Alibaba, they produce less power consumption artifacts. They use solar powers, use different types of energy to fulfill our need for technology. Let me give you an example. Maybe some of you come from agricultural culture. Do you know anybody who had a tractor, a 4-wheel drive tractor, that sold the tractor and bought 2 horses again to use it for that? No. Does anybody drop your computer and start writing a letter to somebody with frequent? No. So technology is something that is here to help us to execute tasks faster. Nobody wants to execute fast tasks slower. So the question is not to use the technology, but how we protect the environment with our resources using the technology for it. This is my vision. We cannot stop the technology, but yes, we can develop better technology, green technology. This is a challenge, and we as Buddhists need to put pressure on that.
Thank you very much. We're over time. I apologize. Is it okay if you can? Is it a quick one? Just okay. Sorry. Okay.
It's with regards to our.
I promise to meet you.
Okay.
With regards to our teaching, it seems that information tries to give us more specific validation answers, and our teachings, and we've been fortunate enough to have enough brilliant teachers around us, that we're supposed to try to get away from our ego and broaden our perspective. So there's sort of not necessarily a conflict, but we're always trying to focus in and validate our ego, but we're supposed to be taught that our ego is supposed to be broader in perspective, so we see the world different. So, just curious as to how you see this.
If you get rid of our ego, we are enlightenment. So everything else is going to be useless because we are already enlightenment. And your ego, our ego, are going to be present in every single task we execute and every single application we develop is going to be there. But when we are talking about Buddhism, we can manage that in a better way because we can recognize that interference more quickly than anybody else. But behind ego, behind the action, behind the deeds, we have the intention. So even we are egoic, if we have the right intentions, the ego can be an ally, not an enemy. Because sometimes we need the ego to start things. We don't start our path as Tariki. We start our path with Jiriki. And we remain with Jiriki for a long, long time. Even now. Most of our path is crossed using Jiriki and not Tariki. Because Tariki is once. And then once you have it, it's done. But Jiriki follows us. So, but we can't say, instead of saying, oh, I don't have Jiriki, it's the other way around. So where I can use my Jiriki to help people? How can I use my Jiriki to be better? How can I use my Jiriki to be ethical? Because this is a word of Jiriki, it's not a word of Tariki. The word of Tariki is different. And we need to deal with that. We need to face that. We need to accept. So we can be free. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jose. I think that's a good place to end it. If you have any further questions, please feel free to ask us.
We're around.
Okay. I'd like to close with Gastro. Please join the Gastro. Namo Amida Butsu. All right, Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Thank you.
Take care, everybody.
Thank you.